Welcome back to the Purple Political Breakdown. Um, I know I haven't been posting a lot. I'm gonna try to post more of my podcast content, but I will also keep on doing these more like commentary analysis videos as well. More like a reaction so we can kind of watch it together and give all our thoughts. I won't be watching everything because if some things I think is boring, then I'll just skip through it. But ultimately, I'll be recording these on one day or when I'm off, basically. So hopefully I can get a couple of videos every week to have a conversation. I've done a lot of reflecting on how I should approach these conversations moving forward. I will not dismiss my dissatisfaction with a lot of things MAGA does, but I will try to tone down the anger and be a little bit more nuanced, but I will not sacrifice values just to adhere to a neutral position. So let's dive right into it. I'll give it basically I'll give it more thought than just like blind dissatisfaction.
In a constructive and interesting way.
Just to tell you what the video about. The video is Destiny, leftist, who's under a lot of controversy. So dude, maybe this situation and circumstances humbled him to take care of his reputation a little bit better. And Andrew Wilson, honestly, not a fan. Don't really like him, but he's definitely a very poster right-wing individual. So leftist versus right-winger, we shall see who comes out on top.
Welcome, anyway, to both of you. Let me start, Destiny. I mean, this whole idea of Donald Trump, making America holy again. What is your response to that?
I feel like we have a lot of issues right now.
And I hope that in the midst of this conversation, that Piers Morgan in particular actually ends up being neutral.
In this country, I don't know if our president being a spiritual leader is one of them. There have been things that I've said about religion, mainly in regards to philosophy and how you reconcile like religion with some philosophical positions. But I do think that right now there's kind of a crisis of meaning in the United States. I think for a lot of people, religion can serve as a good foundation of meaning. However, I don't think that Donald Trump is going to be the guy to, I guess, usher in that era of religiosity in the United States. At least not for any wholly religious person that I know that would, look at a person and think, oh, this is like a spiritual leader that I would want.
Andrew, I would have kind of agreed with that, having known Trump a long time, never seen him as a particularly religious guy. I've got to say, since he got shot, he sounds a very different guy about God, about religion. I've spoken to him myself several times. I mean, really once a week after he got shot, where he said, God must have had a plan for me. He must have saved me for a reason. He said, there can be no other explanation for why I came so close to being killed, but miraculously escaped. I do think he feels that really quite deeply.
Yeah, there's no atheist in foxholes, as the saying goes, right? So.
I'll let
a near-death experience often will bring people closer to the divine. This is a very common thing. Doesn't surprise me that Trump very narrowly, for a turn of his head, is still alive. I'm sure that he could definitely attribute that to divine intervention, and I'm sure even Destiny would understand why a person would do that. He's right about the fact that we do have a crisis of meaning, but he also is right, and I can concede on this point, that an office of faith with a chick speaking in tongues is cringe, and the most divisive thing on planet Earth is religion. It's the most divisive thing when it comes to, it's even more divisive than relationships. It's more divisive than sex. It's more divisive than anything, is the topic of religion itself. America is already very divided on religiosity, with a traditional camp and a non-traditional camp. I don't actually think that this was a great move for him to put in this office of faith, not because I do like the fact that it does signal that it's perfectly acceptable to rule through faith. I think that that's perfectly acceptable. However, I think strategically it wasn't particularly wise, as it opened up a dialogue now between the traditionalists, who were really Trump's kind of staunch supporters, saying, what the hell are you doing here? We don't want this woman, Paula, in any way or shape, form, or capacity representing Christianity on the national stage.
Yeah, I mean, Destiny,
I just remembered, and I'm not being unfair. Andrew Wilson doesn't think a woman could be pope. He doesn't think a woman can lead in like any religious, high valued religious, structure. I forgot that. And I'm not being uncharitable. He legitimately thinks this. You can ask him, and he thinks this.
People see MAGA Christian nationalism as racist. Time magazine said the toxic blend of ethno-religious identity politics was reflected in the prayers and religious symbols participants carried at the US Capitol insurrection on January 6, 2021, and it's become central to the trajectory of the contemporary MAGA Republican Party. Would you agree with that? Piers Morgan Uncensored is now proudly independent. If you like the show, we ask for only one thing: subscribe on YouTube and follow Piers Morgan Uncensored on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
if you want to attack MAGA and you want to do it through the lens of their racist white supremacists or whatever, I mean, most people, I mean, obviously MAGA is not going to care for a variety of reasons, and they shouldn't. And even most people that are kind of like looking from the center or even from the center left are going to be like, well, I don't really know if I feel this way. Like MAGA kind of seems more colorful than they even have been in the past in terms of conservative movements. You can just look online and see that. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of those types of attacks towards that, I guess, ideology, towards that camp.
You're sounding very reasonable today, Destiny. You're right.
I'm a very reasonable person, Piers. Okay.
Well, that is, I mean, he is right. There are better avenues for which to attack the MAGA movement that would actually be more effective for progressives. Them utilizing this.
I mean, if you didn't follow, the point is that the right doesn't care if they're deemed racist, or if they're seen as racist, or if there are racist, and the left attacking them means nothing at this point. That's the premise behind everything he's saying.
This type of attack actually didn't do them very much in the way of good in this last election cycle. And you saw this from large progressive commentators, and this is all they did. Sean Piker, among many others in the political commentary world, Bosch, other guys like this, they hyper-focus on the racial dynamic issues, and Destiny's right. MAGA doesn't care. And most of the supporters of Trump don't care, and most Republicans at this point don't care because it's so overused that essentially if you overuse a phrase like this or these kinds of talking points too much, their effectiveness just basically gets destroyed.
So let's move from making America holy again to making America healthy again. I mean, Destiny is a divisive character. I've got to say about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I'd heard all the stuff about him. So the first time I interviewed him, I was quite like combative with him. And I was pretty charmed by him and quite impressed by him, I've got to say. And I've interviewed him 4 or 5 times since. And I really don't think we've got the devil here at the head of the health service.
I mean, Pierce, I personally do not trust your opinion about any right-winger. You've never said anything nuanced I've ever heard in the last like year. So your words about right-wingers mean nothing to me. Your words about left-wingers mean nothing to me. The only time I think you have value is when you're talking about like British politics.
He seems to practice what he preaches. Are you in favor or against him?
Absolutely against him. I think that there's this talking strategy that people like RFK do that drives me insane, and apparently it works for people like you, where somebody will say something that sounds on its face reasonable, but if you think about it for like 2 seconds, it's the dumbest thing ever. Like the idea of like, well, we need to be examining the safety of these pharmaceuticals. Like we need to look at the data, and it's like, well, yeah, of course. How do you think these things get passed, or what do you think all the research is for? Like people like RFK will just say these things that sound good. Like, shouldn't we be doing research on long-term outcomes of XYZ drug? And it's like, yeah, we should be. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, we do that. Of course we do. The FDA has a pretty good track record, all considered.
Andrew?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that Kennedy's as fine a choice as anybody. It's not like these positions have been filled by people in the past who are incredible at them, not even on the progressive side, often moving into trans issues.
I don't really like that argument that MAGA continues to use, trying to compare these cabinet members to any type of cabinet members. Now, to provide a little bit more context, there has not been many cabinet denials in history. When I looked this up, I believe only 9 have been denied. 7 or 9, right? In American history in terms of cabinet members. So there needs to be a very extreme situation to take place for a cabinet member to be denied. Now, I personally think that the Donald Trump administration and its cabinet nominees are a special exception. With that said, I guess we could get into the weeds. We'll see if Destiny does get into the weeds. I think everything about Donald Trump's administration should not be used as a commonality in other circumstances because of how unique a situation that I believe it currently is. That's my conclusion.
Healthcare, which was a big loser for progressives. I think ultimately, I don't see any problem with this guy getting in there. I don't think he's going to do anything harmful, and I don't really see any problem with him moving into these various agencies and trying to do various reforms. I don't even actually see why progressives would be upset by that. So Destiny might say, well, there's things that he says that are already being done, so he's going to go in and be somewhat redundant. But it's like, you already like those systems, and he's already going into the systems. I don't even see why that would be a problem.
Right. I mean, and Destiny, what I would say is that it always strikes me, if you ever see pictures from, say, Times Square or Trafalgar Square in London.
So you can, I think you can. When I do my reactions with Piers Morgan today, I'm not upset that he's defending the right. I'm upset that he pretends to be nuanced, and by that kind of disclaimer, he uses it to fuel a opinion that is not inherently nuanced. Because when he characterizes right wingers versus left wingers are different. I have to repeat it consistently, because I think people think that I'm just upset that he's repeating right-wing type points, and that's not it. It's the fact that he pretends to be neutral, moderate, or whatever, but he's not. That's my issue.
London or Sydney or whatever it may be from the 20s, right? What's the one thing we all notice immediately if you think about it? There's no fat
They're all in
people.
black and white?
Well, there's no fat people, right? They just didn't seem to exist. Literally, they barely existed because people were far more mobile. They had far better diets to a large degree, and none of the processed crap had come into to ruin their lives. None of the sort of
simplified way
television,
to look at,
internet, and stuff which makes people sit around all day. So very different way of living. And it really strikes me if you look at those pictures today to then, the world, particularly in the sort of developed world, like America, like large swathes of Europe, we've just got very fat and unhealthy. And if all that he achieves in his term as health secretary is getting Americans to really think about that more, wouldn't that be a good thing?
What does that mean?
I mean, I feel like he can luck his way into a couple of okay positions, but the problem is going to be what the focus is. And the problem is that the focus, in some ways, I think is kind of contrary to whatever MAGA believes in, although it's hard to know at any point in time what MAGA believes in. But for instance, I think that probably the number one thing that you could do to increase the overall health of Americans would be to bring down our average weight. And the best way to do that probably would be to find ways to restrict the ultra-processed foods, the stuff that's like super high in sugar, whether that's through additional labeling or whether that's through taxes on ultra-processed food or sugar. Either of those, I think, would be tremendously in a good direction. However, both of those things are an increase in taxes and an increase in bureaucracy. I don't know if MAGA is in favor of either of those things. If that was the sole focus of RFK, I would be more okay with it. But it's like this obsession with like the fluoride in the water and red dye number 3 and the heavy metal microplastics in our ball sacks and everything else. And these things are very like, they're worth looking at, but they're on the peripheral, they're on the edge.
What if he's right? I mean, the reason I say what if he's right is I remember through COVID, for example, all sorts of definitive statements from doctors and scientists, which often turned out to be complete baloney. What if he's actually...
See, it's just more defending of what RFK says. Destiny makes an interesting point in terms of, well, is there a need for bureaucracy to add more? Well, adding more taxes, people won't be happy about that. So yeah, MAGA won't be happy about that. Now, does it need a bureaucracy in order to do it efficiently? Yes, but that was an interesting point. Now, what if he's right? Right about what?
What about this stuff?
He can be right. So first of all, most of the statements that were said by the people on the other side were completely totally incorrect relating to COVID and vaccines. There were no mass deaths. There were no mass injuries, vaccine injuries. There were no microchips planted in us. There were no permanent vaccine passports. There still isn't any proof that it was created in a laboratory. Like all of those things that are not being correct. But insofar as him being right, I'm saying that like it might be the case that microplastics or red dye number whatever could be bad for us or could even be carcinogenic maybe. But these are like 2%, 3% issues. Like 80% is if you could bring people's weight down on average by helping our diets, it would be so much more impactful. And I don't see how you do that without increasing the bureaucracy because you have to be anti-capitalist a little bit. You got to start taxing certain things. You got to target certain types of foods in order to change people's food consumption habits.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, it's a fine line, isn't it, between being relentlessly critical of health institutions and accepted norms and science and so on, and getting to a place where, if you're not careful, public confidence in all of those bodies collapses, and then you start to have serious health issues.
Yeah, that's true. And this is part of the polarization in the United States. Destiny brings up this point. He says, well, these are kind of tangential issues, microplastics, things like this. The truth is, we have states that have done restrictions on things like this. They've restricted sugars. They've restricted some processed foods. It does very little to mitigate the problem. I'm reminded of an article I read not too long ago about Japan, where the Japanese don't have the same epidemic when it comes to obesity that we have here. The gal who was there doing the article made a great point. She said she thought the kids there were trolling when they said their favorite food was broccoli, celery, things like this. But when it was investigated, it turns out they were taught that those are the good foods to eat and nothing else is the good food to eat. So in other words, there's national propaganda around the idea of health and things like this. Instead of moving towards restrictions like Destiny's proposing, I would move more towards national propaganda. But progressives are very wary about moving towards propaganda. I don't know why. Even though now propaganda itself has a negative connotation. I'm just saying the word propaganda because people understand what it means, right? Like a national campaign for something like this could be very effective the same way they do it there. What's not effective though is restrictions. That doesn't seem to do very much. At least it has not so far.
I also think parental responsibility has got to be massive.
Interesting. My question, and this is a legitimate question, is did the national propaganda work when Michelle Obama was trying to preach safe eating habits? That's my question. Or will it only work if the right-wingers try to push it? I'm unsure. I'm very unsure. But that's my question.
Massively reinforced, just generally, right? It's all very well.
Well, that would be part of a national campaign, though. In order to do that,
no, I agree. But you do actually, like when I see some of the food that parents give their kids, not just in America, but we have it in the UK as well. Got a massive obesity problem here, and it's like, where's the parental responsibility to stop shoving horrible?
Yeah, but then we have to look at other things progressives don't want to look at, like alternative family units, single motherhood, the intact family, things like this, which all feed into the idea of how kids are even nourished at home. Like these are all interconnected things, and it's not so fun then if you're running a national campaign to say, father should stay in the home. That's good for the family. That's good for the kids' nourishment. Things like this. You know what I mean? Suddenly, that's why they tend to steer away from that type of public discourse, at least at the governmental level, even though for the health of the nation, probably would be quite good.
So Destiny, your sheer progressiveness is going to stop any solution being achieved.
I'm a deeply unpopular person with a variety of people. I have no problems talking about attacking a particular problem from a multitude of angles. I think that you can talk about what goes on in the household as well. However, I think that the culture, writ large and what's available is also a really challenging thing to deal with. If you've had a kid and that kid is going to school, the thing that makes that kid want something more than anything else isn't just something being available. It isn't just someone on the internet offering it. It's when other classmates have that thing. As soon as you start hearing, hey, Bob or Jane, their parents let them do that, or they have this thing at school. Well, now all of a sudden you're competing against all the other kids in class, and then these types of pressures when your kid is outside of your supervision are almost impossible to overcome. One thing that is kind of irritating, I guess, is I feel like there was a big push to have kids eating healthier at schools a while ago, but everybody made fun of her for it. It was led by Michelle Obama when it came to making healthier foods.
Yeah,
There you go. He asked the question I was thinking.
she was right. I agree.
Yeah, and it seems like Republicans lit her up like crazy for that. And I don't know. I think that, yeah, I mean, we can talk about healthier food in the household. We can talk about healthier food at schools. Like I think that everybody should be on board with it, because things like obesity, being overweight, is one of the worst things that you can do for your health.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was out in Saudi Arabia a couple of weeks ago, and they've got a national campaign to get people out doing exercise 3 times a week. And they've got a very young population, like 70% are under 35. And it's been very popular.
Hey, you know what I want to preach? I want to preach. You know how there's like 6 to 7 hours of school? 2 of those hours, I would argue 3 of those hours, can be made from physical activity. Why not? Learning is great, but if you have like 2 hours, hour physical activities, 2 hours, hour physical activities, and 2 hours and an hour of physical activity, you know how much that would do for overall health and overall happiness and overall engagement in school? I preach this solution, and I think every school should do it. And I don't think there's any argument you can be made that I can't debunk. Yeah, they're going to lose some learning. That learning can be circumvented. And a lot of that learning has very little value. So that's what
and as a result, more and more young people in Saudi are playing sport, for example, than were ever playing before. And that
we
is
also have physical education standards here, Piers. We have physical education standards set down by the government here for years, and those were rolled back due to the idea of fat shaming, due to the idea of my kids can't do this,
which is all bullshit. I agree.
It's all bullshit. And the thing is like those. That's what I'm talking about when we're talking about national campaigns for this. We can bring in exercise standards. We can bring enforcement mechanisms for those standards starting at a young age. Destiny makes a good point. It is valid that if you're in school and your kid and the other kids have donuts, you're probably going to want a donut. You want to eat your broccoli, right? But there's an aspect of social shame that happens with patriotism and aspects of social campaigns and culture that can be actually done from the top down that we see in other nations, including what you're talking about right now. Just something as basic as, okay, physical education, now we're going to actually start taking it seriously. There's 2 hours of it a day instead of just the 30 or 40 minutes of you throw dodgeball at each other, right? I think that these are very valid things that we should look at.
Yeah, I agree. Let's turn to feminism. So Donald Trump has been lauded as the great new feminist of the United States. This comes from his executive order banning trans athletes in women's sport. Let's take a look at him surrounded by grateful women and girls as he did this.
If you'd like to gather around.
So far, I think the conversation has been pretty reasonable.
I think I'm going to be okay. Come on. Secret Service is worried about them. If we have to worry about them, we have big problems. Okay.
I don't think I've ever seen a finer feminist, Destiny.
Ha ha ha, that was so great and funny and amazing. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
I mean, this is like classic Republicans. Like Donald Trump tweets out at 4 a.m. that he's going to make the sun shine, and then at 6 a.m. the sun comes up. Everybody worships him for it. I'm pretty sure, didn't the NCAA already roll back a lot of the trans participation in sports in the United States? And then I feel like we've already seen like the Olympic make moves against it. Like we've already seen in your country, in the United States, across the world, people have kind of like rolled back a little bit on a lot of the trans youth, especially the medication stuff.
Yeah, but you said the phrase there. When you say it's been a little bit and it's been piecemeal, sport by sport and age groups and so on. What Trump has done with one sweep of his pen is say no more of it at all. Right? There will be no more trans athletes in women's sport. Period. Now, I personally think this is absolutely the right thing to do. I think it's become the new doping, where people who have an unfair advantage have been, beating women, removing women from women's teams in, say, the Olympics and so on, actually beating up women, as we saw in the Paris Olympics, where somebody reportedly banned from the World Championships with male chromosomes literally beat up one.
Oh my God, Piers, I can't believe you brought that up. That person was not trans. This has been debunked so many times. This is the lack of credibility you just showed on something that is very apparent. That's going to bring it up. I'll just let it go.
Female opponent so badly, she quit after 40 seconds in the ring. So I do think this is a really important thing. Do you agree with him?
I don't think this is a very important thing. I don't even know if you can enforce this through executive order. Like, I don't know if there's going to be like some kind of Title IX challenge or whatever. I don't know what the courts are doing with this right now. I just don't think this is very relevant in the overall scheme of U.S. or world politics right now. I mean, people don't want women competing with trans women, especially the college level and beyond. I don't really have a problem with that. I never really had a problem with that. I don't know if these two groups of people should be competing with each other. There's like a blip on the grand scale of things, I think.
You know what's interesting, Andrew?
They didn't bring it up, but just to say, That woman that he's referring to was not trans. She had a medical condition, but she was not a male and then transitional female. That's not what happened.
Quite a few on the left since the election. They've moved from the position before the election. I'm not saying Destiny was one of them. I can't remember, but and you can clarify if you want, Destiny. But a lot of them are like, absolutely, trans women should be allowed to compete in women's sport. Blah 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 blah. And Biden and Kamala Harris supported this with actual policies endorsing it. And now the position is, you know what? Nobody cares. It's a thing. I don't have a view. I don't have a view. And I think it's because, to their shock and horror, the single most effective political ad of modern times turned out to be that trans ad that Trump did, ending with Kamala's for they, them, Donald Trump's for you, but also including this issue of women's sports and women's safety and the issue of putting, you know, I mean, as we had in England, in Scotland, actually, a male rapist who.
Hey man, push that Trump propaganda, man.
Who suddenly identified as a woman and got put in a women's prison. It cost the first minister of Scotland their job. I think it's a big issue, far bigger than Democrats want to admit. And it's interesting, the narrative has changed from we're all in favor to actually it's just a small thing, we don't care about it.
Yeah, this has been a major setback for LGBTQ. Period. The trans issue has been the entry gateway for the one of the most brutal attacks against the left in modern times. And all you really have to do is just ask basic logistical questions like, okay, which prisons do they go to? You know what I mean? We were past bathrooms. We were into prisons. And can children get gender reassignment surgery? Things like this. This has always been a very, very unpopular position for leftists, but they can't really back away from it because the T got attached to the LGB, right? So they could never really back away from it. They've had to kind of defend it tooth and nail. To Destiny's credit, he's always had a more nuanced position on this of I don't care, at least to my knowledge. But ultimately, this is not popular for them. It's never been popular for them. When you're talking about what Trump is doing with the gender.
And I agree to that. The LGBTQ has never been popular. I've never been on board. I've never advocated for it. Not the LGBTQ movement, but a lot of the stuff in regards to trans stuff, trans women in women's sports, stuff like that. Just was never could see the coherent logic behind it.
Gender binary, I somewhat disagree. Not that he, the thing I agree with is that he proposed at a government top-down level. The United States only recognizes two genders. Now he means sexes, male and female, right? That's what he's alluding to there. But I do think it actually was very punishing for feminists to have fought all those years for their sports teams and then have men just go in and kick the holy shit out of them, right? And yes, so that actually mobilized, yeah. Well, but I mean, it mobilized a lot of those feminists to move away from the left because they were like, wait a second, this actually wasn't the liberation we signed up for, right? We spent all this time fighting for this, and now you can just basically put on a wig and go break all of our records. I mean, it's just a huge loser for the left. And
I agree. Destiny, I want to read you a quote from Andrew Wilson he posted this week. The most disappointing thing about feminists is how made out of glass they are. With the slightest pushback, they break. They demand equality until you talk to them like you would a man. It's actually comical. Would you concur with him?
I mean, that's everybody in politics. I mean, everybody's a snowflake depending on what the issue you're talking about is. I don't think that it's ever been a huge issue on most of the left when it comes to trans stuff. I think there's a vocal minority on Twitter and in colleges that scream about it. I think it seems like it's a huge issue because Republicans wanted it to be a huge issue. Even that commercial you were talking about was quoting something that Kamala said in 2019. So it seemed like some huge, ever-present issue. But I don't know. I guess I'm looking more towards like domestic policy, like things related to immigration or healthcare or what's happening right now in our executive branch or foreign policy. Like I thought the war in Ukraine was supposed to end on day one. I didn't know that we were signing up to be owners of Greenland and the Gaza Strip and the Panama Canal. These things I think are more important, at least to me, but I don't know, maybe some people are really powered by what Republicans think.
I don't know, I got a 13-year-old daughter. And I got to say, if I was living in America, she was born there actually, but if I was living in America with a 13-year-old daughter who likes sport, I would be very exercised about this, and particularly if she had to share changing rooms with biological men who said, I'm now a woman.
Yeah, I think I'd be more worried about my daughter like dying in Texas, like trying to get a medical procedure done because I'm pretty sure there have been 3 deaths now so far in Texas of young women that are pregnant that can't have medical procedures done because the doctors have to be so careful when they're doing them that they can't accidentally abort a fetus because then they'll be held liable for crime. So I think these are things I'd be worried about more than trans athletes, which are what.
Hey, Destiny Cook there. The point Destiny was making that Piers Morgan was trying to rebuttal because he's defending the right is that the Democrats, by and large, do not support these type of trans stances. Not that it's not an issue, but it's not something that the Democrats support. So therefore, because it doesn't have a large amount of support, that's why it's not an issue. Most people do not support this. Only a minority percentage of people actually support this idea. It's just those minority of people are very loud. That's what Destiny was referring to. So I think one thing you can definitely say though is, should the Democrats have denounced it more blatantly and clearly? Maybe that could have helped them a lot, potentially. Bro, I'm sorry that 2 seconds that I was being quiet, because I'd like to play video games while I do reactions, because it helps me kind of stay engaged. My mind can kind of, it just helps it keep it active. I was about to kick a field goal to go down 4 going into half. This MFer blocked it and returned it for a touchdown. I quit the game. That was some BS.
More than a
whatever
woman
percentage of
potentially
it.
being killed in a boxing ring by a trans athlete.
How many times has this happened?
Well, it hasn't yet, but
Yeah,
it will do if it
exactly,
carries on.
exactly. But it already has happened with the abortion. So that's what I'm more worried about. Yeah.
Yeah, but children's gender reassignment surgery.
He said more. Yeah, Piers Morgan, you just got destroyed again. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to. No, Piers Morgan got destroyed. I'm not going to be nice about something that is very clearly in my face. That was a terrible rebuttal, Piers. Try better next time.
That is something which has been on the table for a long time. That's one. And two, when you're talking about this issue, it's kind of revisionist history, right? Now, suddenly the Democrats don't care, right? Oh, we you know, it was always a vocal minority. No, it really wasn't. These were very, very public fights going on at the national level. And the reason is because this was a moral question. We're talking about a moral question from the viewpoint of the Christian right, which most right wingers are Christians. You're actually assaulting their religion. You're assaulting their idea of what moral grounding even is. So to them, it's a huge deal. For Destiny, who has a completely different moral prism, it's really not a big deal, right? He doesn't really care about it. It's not that important. But
Again, you're switching the argument. And I completely disagree with Andrew Wilson's notion that this was a popular thing amongst Democrats. I don't think you can prove that at all, to be honest. Now, has there been some remarks here and there that's not denouncing it and somewhat supporting it? Yeah, but it's not a platform issue that is made a core value in any type of political election or in type of political discussion or political gain. Like, that's not part of it. Now, abortion rights, that is a part of it. Trans rights and trans women in sports, that's never been a part of it.
to the average person, at least to the average right-wing conservative who's a Christian, it's a huge deal. The assault of the moral foundation is something they're going to take issue with. It's going to be one of their top priorities. So to say that Democrats were not fighting tooth and nail on behalf of trans inclusiveness, including in sports and everything, it's just insane revisionism. Of course,
Yeah, they absolutely were. I mean, I look at someone like J.K. Rowling, who got absolutely, destroyed by the woke brigade for standing up for women's rights to fairness and equality. Now everyone lauds her for her heroic stance, but at the time, most women understandably, put their head under the vicious parapet and didn't want to engage, and that left people like her out on their own, getting completely killed by people who profess to be the Be Kind lobby. And talking of which, I wanted to play you this, Destiny, because it really annoyed me.
Like I said, it's fair to make a criticism that it wasn't a popular opinion, but the vocal minority was very attached to it, and the more center left to normal left Democrats either supported it or did not retract against it. So I think that is very fair to criticize in regards to this issue.
Not because it's a comedian making a joke, that's absolutely fine, nor that I want her banned or cancelled or any of those things. Just about the blatant hypocrisy of what we're about to hear. This is Chelsea Handler talking about Melania Trump.
I am your DEI host, Chelsea Handler. It was a huge year for biopics, A Complete Unknown about Bob Dylan, about Maria Callas, and Honora about Melania Trump.
Now, Destiny, what she's doing there is calling the First Lady a hooker, okay? She's perfectly entitled to say that. But she would never have done that joke, and nor would any comedian have ever done that joke about a Democrat First Lady at an award ceremony. Ever.
Let's not pretend that these are even similar situations. It's like the blind. It's kind of frustrating when people try to equate everything. Knowing Donald Trump's history, it's not the same. Now, if someone had Donald Trump's history with women and went for president, would you make that joke? I don't know. I'd be curious if someone made a joke about Hillary Clinton after the Bill Clinton controversy. That'd be very interesting to hear. But it's funny how Piers Morgan's becoming this sensitive about a joke about the First Lady. But if it was on the other way around, if I play the Piers Morgan game, he would not say anything about someone saying a joke about a Democrat. He'd actually laugh and be hysterical about it. Piers Morgan, I just believe, is a hypocrite.
So my question is, are the Democrats, again, is it one rule for them, one rule for everybody else? And before you do the Republicans do other stuff, I know they do. And it just seems to me.
So you know they do, but you bring the tape of the Democrats doing that because, y'all answer it, Piers Morgan favors the right. If I'm Destiny in this situation, I'm going to say one sentence really clear. Piers Morgan, I don't care. I do not care about a random joke. I'm not a sensitive lefty. I'm sorry, I can't be that emotional lefty that you want. That's literally all I would say to Piers Morgan. I don't care. Honestly, I don't give two shits about a joke made about Melania. I don't care. Simple as that.
She would never have done that, and nor would any comedian if it was a Democrat first lady.
I so don't care. I mean, like, what is a question? Was a joke?
Oh my god, yo. I'd never watched this. I'm gonna be honest. I did not think Desi was gonna go do exactly what what I would do in the same situation.
Mean, or would she not have done it towards the Democrat? She probably wouldn't have done it towards the Democrat because those types of people all tend to lean left. That'd be my guess, right? The same way that if it was any right-leaning comedians, they're probably not going to go super hard on anybody on the right. I mean, that seems pretty obvious. You're asking if it's a mean joke. I mean, yeah, it's a mean joke. Lots of people tell mean jokes. I don't know what kind of.
No, it's not about the mean joke. Well, I think it's not really a joke. It's just calling the first lady a hooker is just vile.
Okay, the majority of, I hear a ton of conservatives now that say that Michelle Obama and the wife of the French Macron are trans. Like, I'm pretty sure that's Candace Owens. She said I would stake my entire career on Macron's wife being trans.
That's not a ton of
I don't
conservatives.
understand. Sure,
That's not a ton of
I see a lot of
conservatives.
jokes about that Michelle Obama stuff being trans, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, the Michelle Obama dick jokes are very old and have been going on for a long time, right? I've seen those, you've seen those, and some of them are kind of funny. But the point is that with Chelsea Handler here, they're one of the most promiscuous women in Hollywood, calling someone else a hooker is,
right.
by the way, hilarious. And all.
So, y'all heard that, right? Some of them are funny when he talks about Michelle Obama having a dick, but then he is complaining and whining like a bitch about the joke regarding Melania. Like, do you see the standards and it being doubled right here? Do you see it? It's very clear to me, but I guess it's not clear to the people who are actually like being a kind of hypocritical right now. That's why I said, in both situations, I don't care. You will never see me on here complaining about Michelle Obama getting dick jokes. Do I think it's cringe when people make conspiracies about it? Yeah. But when it comes to dick jokes, I don't care. I'm not a whiny little bitch. Like, come on.
Also, you're talking about an entire party who is pro-sex work, pro-sex worker, pro-prostitution, pro-OnlyFans, does everything it can possibly do in order to enable those things. And then at the same time, they're like, oh, I can't believe the first lady's a hooker. It's like, if it was anybody else who wasn't a Republican, they would probably glorify it. They'd be like, finally, our first prostitute first lady. Like, I don't even understand why, the depths of the hypocrisy here is actually kind of outrageous, right?
Yeah, I completely agree.
Well, I think the joke has more to do with pointing out, I think, the hypocrisy on the other side. For instance, if you make a joke about, like, I don't know if we're like for Stephen Crowder being gay, that's a common joke that people on the left make. I don't think the joke is, haha, you're gay, so that's bad. I think the joke is more, you hate this thing and you are this thing, which my guess is going to be, I didn't see her whole performance. I don't even know the movie reference she was making, but that's probably the joke is that you guys hate prostitutes and you are a prostitute. You hate gay people, you are gay.
No, that wasn't the joke. That wasn't the joke. She was just basically she's calling Melania.
Of course it wasn't. I'm going to skip because Piers does Piers. The normal Piers thing, being full of shit. All right, what's next? Kanye. Who cares about Kanye? All right, let's see what this is.
Talking of stinking hypocrites and vile people, let's come to Kanye West, who started the week parading his wife Bianca Censori naked on the Grammys red carpet. We're looking at these images
Kanye
now. It was
West,
a deliberate derobing, whatever. I mean, obviously any woman can.
Kanye West is freaking wild, bro. That dude is unhinged. Oh my God, Kanye. Jesus.
Do that. I thought it was all a bit cheap and embarrassing and pathetic, and I certainly wouldn't want to be doing that with my wife on a red carpet. What was far more serious to me was what then followed, which was literally just a bombardment of horrifically anti-Semitic, racist comments, and then some pornography that he began flying out. One of his posts, sometimes you have to do it like the Pharaohs, make your Jews work for you, but watch them as close as you can, whip your Jews. What was interesting to me, Destiny, was ultimately Elon Musk, I messaged him directly on X publicly and said, you're going to just keep letting this guy do it. He's breaking every single rule that X has about this kind of stuff. So the normal rules weren't applying to him, and he was doing it to 32 million people. So the free speech argument is one thing. Actually, the X in-house rule book is another.
So you brought in Andrew Wilson and Destiny to come on the platform to talk about a joke about Melania Trump and Kanye West. This platform is so unserious.
Wasn't being applied. So it seemed to be one rule for him, one rule for everybody else. But secondly, it was clearly, in my opinion, when you start talking about making Jews your slaves and whip them, you are actually now committing a crime. You're inciting actual violence against a group of people. That is a crime. It's not protected by the First Amendment. But what was interesting was Elon Musk only intervened and shut down the account for the NSFW pornography, which was completely legal. So, inciting people to violence against Jewish people was not considered to cross a line, but actually posting legal pornography was. I thought that was an interesting contradiction. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like Kanye West to me, it seems pretty sad because I feel like it's pretty obvious he has mental issues relating to what is he bipolar or whatever. So I don't know if he has these manic phases where he just starts going crazy, and I don't know if he either surrounds himself with yes men and fires everybody else, or if there's just a bunch of people like the Candaces in the world who are just around him to take advantage of him. But I mean, clearly he has these mentally unhinged moments. I'm sure him being as famous and as wealthy and as successful as he is probably doesn't help with that mania. As for rule enforcement on X, I mean, there's a million things that could be said about that. People have had a lot of complaints about Elon coming on. Obviously, a lot of people from the left feel like the platform has gotten a lot more hateful. A lot of people have said that the platform's gotten a lot more spammy. There's a lot more bot activity and everything. Some people on the right over the H1B fiasco were upset that Elon's going to be banning people who previously would have been okay because of their political / racial stances, I guess, or whatever. So yeah, it seems like Elon's been having a little bit of trouble getting a handle on how he exactly wants to present X's moderation to the world.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, I interviewed Kanye West a year and a half ago, and he denied having any mental illness, certainly denied having any treatment for any mental illness. And a lot of Jewish people in particular think it's just an excuse, that he just actually is a massive attention seeker. It was the Grammys. He's no longer a kind of, superstar rapper in people's eyes. He's just become this pretty unpleasant troll. And that he was doing all this to suck attention away from the Super Bowl, from the Grammys, and so on. What do you think? Where's the truth about Kanye West, do you think?
I mean, he's done this before. I mean, he had a meme presidential campaign, right?
Yeah.
A total meme. Ultimately, some people.
They're probably just gonna agree. I don't care. Let's hear about the stuff regarding Elon Musk. This one should be interesting. This is where all the meat and potatoes are, I'm sure.
Turn to the Trump-Elon Oval Office presser. We've got a sort of this.
Some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes. I'm not sure we should be sending $50 million worth of condoms anywhere, frankly. I'm not sure that's something Americans would be really excited about. And that is really an enormous number of condoms when you think about it.
But Destiny, what did you make of that? Obviously, it's very unusual. You've got the richest man in America standing next to the President of the United States in the Oval Office by the Resolute desk. He's got his kid with him who's picking his nose. It's all a bit random and weird and surreal. However, I did watch it all, and I kept thinking to myself, if I was an average American watching this, hearing what Elon Musk is doing to federal overspending, I'd be cheering him on. I'd be all in favor of this.
Of course you would. Of course you would.
Yeah, unfortunately, the average American, I guess, or the average person has no idea how government works or functions, and I guess weird and surreal is just the way to describe now, or illegal, I guess, is the way to describe that this administration has decided to address programs that they don't like. If you want to cut down on waste, fraud, and abuse, I don't think anybody would necessarily have a problem with it, but they keep saying waste, fraud, and abuse when what they mean is programs that I don't like, and they've already taken several almost certainly illegal actions in trying to basically unilaterally dismantle organizations like USAID that have been independently authorized by Congress that the president doesn't have the ability to do, to dismantle unilaterally, and now you've seen TROs coming out from the judiciary that's telling him, hey, you have to stop. There was the one in the federal spending freeze that not only was a TRO issued, telling him that you have to stop freezing these funds. Now another judge has said you are violating the TRO. You need to stop this immediately. So I guess if you don't care about the legality or the process and procedure or anything having to do with the structure of government, I guess it's a cool thing. But if you care about like following the law or the rules or maintaining your government, then it would probably be a horrific thing. But
Andrew?
Yeah, you got this idea. I've heard Destiny kind of talk about this before. When he's saying, okay, these are illegal actions, and possibly the court's not going to be able to catch up with these illegal actions, and so Trump is just going to basically continue with what he's considering to be illegal actions. Thing is like people forget about things like jury nullification, or like the idea that you can have laws, and even if you're the enforcer of the laws in the state's executive branch, you don't actually have to enforce these things. There's no, like you're put there for a reason, just like a jury can nullify law by saying, even though the law says you're guilty, I can still come back with a not guilty verdict. What's happening here is we don't even know what the waste, fraud, and abuse is.
Oh my God, he's playing that weird game in terms of the technicality of the rule of law. I hate people like this personally.
So there's an audit going on, and this is exactly what Musk is doing. They're trying to audit this and get it in front of the attention of the American people to say, look, we don't want condoms for the Taliban. That was 15 million. Promotion of atheism in Nepal for 500,000. French LGBTQ programs in West and Central Africa for $1 million, right? I mean, the list goes on and on and on. $200 million, 20 days in. I think that the American people do deserve to know that. And I don't think that they would, that this would be front and center or a thing we would be focusing on absent this audit. And I think that more of these government agencies should be audited. Now, Destiny can he can say, well, technically, due to the rule of law, we have judges who are making these impositions and this and that. It's like, yeah, that's fine. That's all part of the process too. It's all part of the process of law. The process of law is playing out exactly like it should. Judges are supposed to create injunctions if something illegal is going on, et cetera, et cetera. There's nothing wrong, though, with auditing these places. And for the spirit of transparency,
I wonder, depending on when this came out, he says that, and I mean, there's a logic to the madness. However, are you going to keep the same energy when you have people trying to circumvent the process of law, i.e., Elon Musk wanting to impeach judges, wanting to get rid of judges, want to bypass judge rule? I'm curious.
I think that leftists are just pissed for no good reason. Like they go, oh, Musk is collecting all these people's information. It's like unelected officials at the DMV are collecting my information. The unelected officials at the Social Security office are collecting my information. Like so many government offices collect my information by people who I definitely didn't elect, and neither did Destiny. They're totally fine with that. But for some
I'll let Destiny respond to this.
reason with these guys, no, that's too much.
That's a good
That's
point.
I mean, the reason well,
That's
no,
a good
it's not
point,
The
Desiree,
reason
isn't
why is because these things have been authorized by law. There's a process and procedure there. The Social Security Administration was created by Congress. There's a process and procedure by which they collect data, and they have a process and procedure by which they store data and who's allowed to access it. Elon Musk is definitionally an unelected bureaucrat who is now part of a shadow government who is going from agency to agency, cutting whatever he decides is necessary. In terms of there being transparency, all
He
of this
hasn't cut
stuff was
anything. What did
already
they cut?
publicly available. They've literally shuttered the USAID offices. What do you mean? They've literally
Shuttered
shuttered
them
payments
how?
from the Treasury.
Yeah,
Shuttered them
yes,
and they
that-
shuttered them as
and-
they tried to give a
and-
mass recall saying all the employees needed to come home, which was stopped by a TRO, by a judge. And now a lot of these programs, there was just recently a report by the head of the Treasury guy who now is fired, who was saying that there's a whole bunch of food and stuff that we ship to other countries. It's just going to spoil because now we've cut off funding and money for it. All of these things have just been unilaterally cut by Elon Musk and Trump without any authorization from Congress, despite the fact that Congress was the one that authorized the funds for these programs and authorized these offices and agencies. If you want to remove all of these things, that's fine. If you don't want $500,000 being spent for trans ballets in Nepal for atheists or whatever, that's fine. If you don't want it, then Congress has to defund it. That's the way that this process works. It's not up to the president unilaterally to decide what he likes or doesn't like. It's already
Well,
been
actually,
passed
hang on.
by the Congress.
Well, hang
It's
on,
not,
hang on.
it's not up to you.
That's actually, I was going to say, look, that's not actually correct. He's entitled to do this, and then there
he's
can be legal.
absolutely not.
Well, hang on. Then there can be legal challenges, and Trump made it clear in the Oval Office yesterday he would accept what a judge said. Now, by contrast, I remember Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez when it came to the Texas ruling in a court by a judge about abortion medication, for example. She said that the Democrats should not accept what that judge had ruled. Right. So why is it one rule? Why is it one rule for Democrats that they can ignore a judge's order with impunity?
I don't believe that Piers Morgan is characterizing this fairly. I mean, I think Piers Morgan, he's not a trustworthy source. But it's just all the time, Donald Trump's administration gets criticized. Piers Morgan does a whataboutism. And then when he criticized one aspect, he brought up that he brought something up to dismiss a whataboutism. Piers Morgan is so two-faced, man. Not two-faced. He's just a hypocrite.
Impunity. But when President Trump says, if you want to challenge this, no problem, I will accept the ruling of the judge. Isn't that democracy?
What years was AOC the president of the United States?
What difference does that make?
What does that have to do with anything?
She's not in the position to do these things. She can give the advice on it. If you want me to ask myself, like,
she's an elected lawmaker who doesn't want to obey the law.
A lawmaker. She's in a different branch of government. She's part of the legislature. We're not talking about the legislature. We're not talking about a random lawmaker right now. We're talking about the president of the United States doing things to intentionally contravene. You can't just say you can break the law.
President Biden did the same over student loans.
No, he absolutely didn't. When the Supreme Court shut him down in one thing, then he took a different avenue. It was not the same. President Biden did not ignore temporary restraining orders. It wasn't issuing TROs to stop what he was doing with the loan forgiveness. It's a totally different thing. It's not the same. It's not the same process.
Hang on, Destiny. I just
Vance and other people have said over and over. I'm so sorry, Piers. Vance and others have made it clear over and over again. They've quoted the Andrew Jackson quote, and they've said, well, we should just resist the judiciary. It is not part of law and order. It's not part of checks and balances for the executive to say, well, I don't care what a judge says. We'll just do whatever, which is what they're currently doing. And a judge has already said they've done with the TRO that was placed on them, having to do with freezing federal funding. So they've already broken with what the judges are telling them to some extent. And at the end of the day, there's no way to check and balance the executive if they're just going to do what they want to do. You have no checks and balances there. What are men in robes and lawmakers going to walk down and fight with the U.S. Marshals and the FBI? Like, it's not going to happen.
Andrew?
Yeah, right, exactly. So this is an issue. What you have is an issue of authority. So Trump he's trying to expand the limits of his office as fast as possible, and I understand why. Last time he was there, they were trying to impeach him from basically day one, made up this phony Russian collusion nonsense.
So Andrew Wilson is trying to excuse. Andrew Wilson is gone at this point. He's trying to excuse Donald Trump's actions. And his excuse is, yeah, he's trying to solidify his power because he almost got impeached before. Yeah, he might have done something bad before, but he almost got impeached. He should not be impeached. He should be our ruler. He should be our leader. He should be a dictator. That's what it sounds like from me on my perspective. I'll let Andrew Wilson the cook, though. I'll see if there's something I can grab onto as a nuanced position.
He comes in now, he has nothing to lose. He's going to expand his office as quickly as possible, try to move things as quickly as he possibly can. And most importantly, he doesn't trust the judicial branch. That's what he said himself in his various speeches. I don't trust them to give fair rulings. I don't trust that they're actually there in respect to actual law. He doesn't actually even believe that. So what he's doing is he's expanding as quickly. Hang on, my turn. So he's expanding it as quickly as he possibly can. But he did say that he would abide by the rulings of these judges. He just recently said this, and we don't know what's gonna come of that. Right now, he's expanding this office to try to figure out these audits, this type of thing. I don't see what he's actually done wrong. You're already panicking, but we haven't really had a chance to see what happens if he abides by these rulings, doesn't abide by these rulings.
Right.
We don't really know that yet.
Right.
Well, Doge in and of itself is probably a wholly illegal agency. I don't think that Doge even exists. I don't think they have the legal capacity to even do what Trump wants them to do. Number one. Number two, bringing up the Russia collusion stuff is funny when the entire foundation for Hunter Biden and Burisma was entirely fabricated. That person's already been convicted by the FBI for lying about the origination for that. And three, Donald Trump was already found to have people who were working with him collude with Russia. Roger Stone did it, but he was pardoned by Donald Trump the same way Donald Trump pardoned all 1,600 J6 offenders.
Same way that Biden just
people that were
Biden does the whole crime family, right? Pardons the whole crime family.
Crime family?
That's fine.
Oh, yeah. How many crimes
And
have they
then- and
committed?
then Pardon's-
Oh, wait,
Pardon's
the
vouching
Republicans,
on-
Republicans had like 8
Well, how do we
years
ever
to
know they're
investigate
all
it and found nothing. Yeah,
They're
you
all
know,
pardoned.
8 years to investigate it. What do you mean? How many special
Yeah, I don't
counsels?
know.
How many,
How do we have 8 years to
They had
investigate him?
nothing.
How did
Because
we have
they've
8
been
years to
investigating him
investigate
from as soon as Biden was in office. They've been investigating this guy, Hunter Biden, over and over and over and over again. And they found nothing. That's why
I'm
they
not
charged him
talking
again the
about
other day for tax fraud. Well, for Joe Biden, they
Yeah,
found
yeah.
nothing ever.
Well, Destiny, Destiny,
Hang on,
hang on,
this isn't going to make
All
it
fake
better. I
news.
just want to make sure that
All
we
fake
Destiny,
news.
can
why-
All fake
get back to the
news.
actual
At the end
point.
of the day, the
Destiny,
facts
none of
don't
them have
matter.
committed crimes. Why do they all need preemptive pardons?
Yeah, they all need
Because
pardons.
Trump has
though.
shown over and over again that he doesn't need crimes to start chasing down people, and the Republicans have no problem hunting people down to try to go on.
Piers Morgan's trying to smile so good. So he's trying to be so smug. There's no way you think just because someone got, which I disagree with, by the way. I do not agree with the concept of preemptive pardons. But a preemptive pardon is not a one-to-one declaration that something inappropriate took place. That is a very lazy way to look at pardons. Very lazy way.
And the Democrats haven't been doing that shit for the last year.
Give me one example.
Stormy bloody Daniels.
Did
Honestly.
he break a law? Did he break a law?
What
Also,
a
that
farce
wasn't
of
the
a
federal government.
case.
That was the state.
Are you
Okay, so you just
honestly
don't like the
happy
law.
that
That's fine.
the
You don't
only
like the law.
time
You
an
don't like the
American
law.
hang on, the
Yeah,
only
if you
time
don't
an
like the law,
American
you just don't
president
like the law. No, I don't care.
the
I don't care.
only
If you don't
time an
like the law,
American
just say
president was
that.
ever
Say, I don't
dragged for a
like the
criminal
law.
court was over a one-night stand with a porn star 20 years ago.
Yeah, Piers Morgan again has very little credibility. He's paraphrasing things incorrectly. He did not get in trouble because he slept with a porn star. He got in trouble for falsifying business records. So I don't know why he's trying to paraphrase it like that, but it's just very easy to do so to make it seem like it's no big deal because Piers Morgan is a very lazy reporter. I'm sorry for being harsh, but like I can't give you leeway if there's nothing to grasp onto. I just can't. Like some things, like I already agreed with like the trans stuff. We agreed with the Kanye stuff, but like, come on.
Utterly
It
preposterous.
wasn't over a one-night stand. It was over misappropriating
Oh,
campaign
come
funds
on,
and then creating
Destiny.
a paper trail. You can, if you don't like the law, that's fine.
You've had presidents like Obama waging illegal drone programs, killing thousands of innocent people. Why is he not in a
Illegal
criminal
as
court?
per who? Illegal as per who? Which crimes? What are we talking about?
You don't think
You
illegal
can't
drone
just say
programs
illegal
are
because
criminal?
it sounds. Illegal as per who?
Oh, you think they're
You can say
lawful?
illegal because it sounds bad. Apparently so.
What
Yeah,
about the illegal invasion of Iraq by George Bush?
For which? What are we talking about for illegal invasion? Illegal
I'm
as per
talking
what
about crimes.
Which
No,
crime? Which
these
crime?
are
Which
not
crime?
crimes.
Sleeping with a porn star.
Misappropriating campaign funds.
I'm making the point. I'm making the point. The only time an American president has ever been dragged for a criminal court was not over running illegal drone programs or illegally invading sovereign countries. It was over an alleged one-night stand with a porn.
Piers Morgan is such a terrible political reporter. Like he just doesn't understand these things, and then phrases it in a very non-factual way. It's very lazy. I'll be honest. It's a very lazy way to handle this stuff. It's very disappointing. Very, very disappointing.
Porn star.
these are-
It involved a bit of paper shuffling. It was completely ridiculous.
You have strong feelings about what you think should be a crime or not. But you don't care about the law. There's no legal argument to be had. Then if you just think it's a crime because it's bad, you don't like it, or you think it's a crime or it's
Destiny
not a crime
logic
because you
for
think it's a
you.
big deal, that's fine. But I mean, like if you want to have
Yeah,
the legal
Destiny
argument,
logic for you.
if
As
you
long
want to
as
talk about
bad things are done via the process of law, that's fine. But if you do good things
saying
after the
it's
process
fine.
of
I'm
law, that's bad. It's like, what are you talking about,
Yeah,
man?
I know. Here's my chain of logic. I know it's hard to follow. If you are a criminal, it's because you've broken a
Rock
law.
real slow.
Not all bad things are criminal. Okay. Not all bad things are crimes. You can think somebody did a bad thing, but they didn't commit a crime. Donald Trump committed crimes in New York State. Probably committed crimes insofar as Georgia's concerned, and he's committed federal crimes insofar as the Mar-a-Lago documents case was and the J6 case was. He won't be held accountable for all of that, thankfully, because he's dismissed it. He does everything he can to elude accountability. But those are crimes. If you want to say I don't like the war in Iraq and that's illegal, illegal as per who? We can talk about the ICJ or the ICC if you want, but that gets obviously way more complicated.
No,
If
that
you
wasn't
want
what
to say
my point
illegal,
was.
you
My
have to
point
refer to
was,
crimes.
yeah, it wasn't my point. My point was to say that from your view, you're only concerned about process of law
The
in this
law,
case,
yes, the
right?
law, yes,
Not about,
correct,
not,
yes.
hang on. Not about the moral implications of the actual waste, fraud, and abuse that is brought up. Only that the technical process is followed. So it's like, okay, but what if they're not following your technical process, but they're actually finding waste, fraud, and abuse from a moral implication? That's actually a good thing. Now, I don't even agree with you that that they're breaking any laws. I don't even agree that they're breaking any laws. These challenges are brand new. We have no idea.
Bringing up the moral argument is you trying to obfuscate the argument to a different location. Piers Morgan brought something up stupid. He had a stupid argument about the Stormy Daniels case. Destiny completely debunked it by referencing it being related to law. Now, in terms of the moral implications of what Obama and Bush did, whatever you find on the spectrum, that's fine, but that wasn't breaking the law. That's the only point that was being made. You're trying to change it into a moral argument with Destiny potentially excusing things for what they are, but that's not what he's doing. It's a very lazy way to debate to try to get a gotcha. That's what it sounds like from my end. Now, if you want to argue the moral thing, I think it's better to transition there after coming to a point of agreement in terms of what exactly was a criminal action based off the law versus wasn't.
idea how this is going to play out. You don't. I don't. And we have no idea
We
if
have
he's
a good
going
idea.
to
We
adhere
know.
to what the court is going to say. No, we don't have a good idea. You have no idea what you're talking about. It's not. We don't know for sure that Trump is going to just go, oh, I'm just going to Jackson the courts. The courts can enforce their own law. Like that is speculation. That's beyond the pale.
They've
I don't
already
even
done
think
that. A
there's
judge has
political
already
will.
issued a ruling saying they've already violated a TRO. So that's already happened to some extent. Now, how far will it go? Who knows? But they've already done exactly that. Doge does not have the legal authority to go in and unilaterally.
Now they're getting a
shut
legal
federal
challenge back,
offices.
doesn't he?
They have. They
Yeah, they're
didn't
giving
even
a legal
respond.
challenge
Read the TROs. Their response was, "Oh, we're going after fraud," and the judge laughed. And he said, "This isn't even."
That
a response
doesn't mean that doesn't. Wait. So yes, they are. Not only are they going to respond to this, but they're setting up for legal challenges to go back the other direction. This is obvious. And by the way, this is part of the process. Like I don't know why you just pretend like these politicians don't expand their offices all the time, and that's what the judicial does, right? It comes in, it'll rein it in, it'll say this is constitutional, it's not constitutional, you can't do this, you can't do this. They do it all the time. There's so much precedent for this, in fact. So if he doesn't adhere to what the judges end up saying, to what these courts actually say, when he has no more legal standing to fight it, then you have a leg to stand on. Right now, you don't.
He's
Right
already
now,
done that.
he's acting,
Okay, well,
acting the best he can
all right.
in the ability of the office of the president of the United States.
Chaps, we will see.
So the goal,
because
the goal should be to just break as many laws as possible, then, and then see what happens.
no,
That's
Trump
the
has made
right
it clear
course
he'll
of
accept
action.
the ruling of the judges. If he doesn't, that's another matter. Look, I want to wait.
That doesn't even follow anyway. Like
Guys, I
that
wanna
doesn't
leave-
follow logically.
All right, they're wrapping it up. I'll be very curious to see if Piers Morgan's keeps this energy depending on what happens. But that is all we got for today. That's my commentary regarding it. If you disagree, I will respond to everybody in the comment section moving forward so we can have a conversation. I don't think it's going to be a productive one, but a conversation to see where we can align. But with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed. Y'all have a good one. Take care. Peace.